Hello everyone and welcome to Sentence Diagramming 101. This is Chapter 2, Function, Word Function in Sentence, Part B, Verbs. Now, verbs are a little more complicated, so this video is going to be broken up into different sections. But this first part here should be familiar because we already talked about this in Chapter 1, because verbs, as you know, show action, and we identified them as the part of speech, but also now as the thing that is happening. Just as a little review here, there are 4 types of verbs, right? There's the linking verb. Those are the ones that literally link the subject of the sentence to the rest of the sentence. And those are often some form of to be, right? Is, am, was, were, been, being, you know. They're also the sensory verbs like seeing, smell, taste, feel, touch, hear, seems, right? Transitive verbs are the ones that go across, so they will have an object. So you can always be like verb what, and then there'll be an answer. So jumped what? The fence. Boom. Transitive verb. Starred who? Timothy Chalamet. All right, transitive. So a transitive verb will always have something after it. Intransitive verbs aren't going to have things after them, right? They're just going to hang out there like laughed, sneezed, coughed, choked, smiled. You don't, laugh a thing. You don't sneeze a thing. You don't cough a thing. I guess you could cough up a thing, but anyway. This brief note here is just reminding you that you probably have heard this phrase before, the predicate. Predicate is a fancy grammatical phrase for anything not the subject. So predicates include verbs and then everything that comes after them, which could be nothing. Could be a bunch of prepositional phrases, could be subject complements, could be direct objects. Did I just curse at you in a foreign language a little bit? Okay, well, don't worry, we'll get there. But for the rest of the types of verbs, there's the modals. These are also called auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, depending on, what book you're looking in. But these are the ones you're familiar, will be, might be, can be, right? Those are all going to be modals. Now, because that's more of a review, I'm going to have you just pause real quick, just pause this video and work on exercise 2B1, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk about verb tense. All right, did you pause? All right. Now, there is a video overview that tells you what the answers are, so you can go and watch that when you're ready. But while we're here, I wanted to enjoy a quick side jaunt into tense, mood, and voice. So these are the other ways that you can talk about verbs other than their type. So verb tense is the most complicated one, so we're going to spend the rest of this video talking about it. Verb tense tells you when a verb is happening. So in English, we're very concerned about when things occur, and we generally divide things up into 3 categories, right? We have the present tense, right? It is happening right now. The past tense, it already happened. And then we have the future tense. It will happen, or it might happen, or it could happen, right? But we're not satisfied with just 3 choices because we want to have all of the options. So we break each one of these, present, past, and future, into other modes. And those modes are the simple, which is the one you use all the time. But then we also have the progressive, which is when you add ing usually to a word to show that it is continuing for a period of time. Like I skated versus I am skating, right? I am continuing to skate. And then there's also the perfect. Perfect is a little more complicated. It's not perfect, but it's for an action that started in the past before another action started or ended. But it's going to have a helping verb usually that will assist it. But let's kind of look at all of these. Now, before we get into the actual tenses, I do want to mention that there are other types of grammatical functions that are going to be created out of verbs, but they're not verb tenses. And those are the infinitives, the imparticiples, and the gerunds. There's an entire chapter devoted to this, so if it doesn't make sense yet, don't worry about it. Just realize that verbs are complicated. But we have the infinitive is what you call it when you put the word to in front of a verb, like to speak, to sit, to drink, to bake, whatever. That is called the infinitive form of the verb. The next one is the participle, and the participle is when you have a verb, but it's acting as an adjective and it's describing something. So take the word break, right? To break is a verb, but broken, like my phone has a broken screen, broken is made from a verb, but right now it's describing my screen, so it's behaving as an adjective. So that's a participle. It is an adjective made out of a verb. And then the last one is when a verb decides it doesn't want a verb today, it wants to be a noun. And those are called gerunds. So, watching movies is my favorite part of Friday night. So watching, well, that's a verb. Yeah, but watching movies is a subject and it's acting as a noun right now. So just be aware that we will spend a lot more time on these. But those verb forms, infinitives, participles, and gerunds, they don't have anything to do with verb tense. So now let's talk about tense. It's going to get tense. This chart shows you options in English with grow. We're going to play this game again at the end of the chapter with the word bite, so wait for that one. But we're going to start basic, right? We've got the simple tense. So in the simple present, you're just, general facts, states of being, habitual action. High school dances have a reputation for awkwardness. A high school cafeteria transforms into a magical dance space. The chaperone monitors student behavior both on and off the dance floor. So these are different kinds of present tense verbs: have, transforms, monitors. Napoleon Dynamite enjoys leftover tater tots. Deb wears a dress with puffy sleeves. Mosquitoes bite to the student. So all of these are simple present tense verbs. Now, if we wanted to take these same concepts, same ideas, same actions, and make them past tense, we would say high school dances had a reputation. Not have, that's current, right? That's present. But had, past tense. Or the cafeteria was transformed. Or chaperones monitored, right? Past tense. They did it yesterday or last night or before this very moment. And then you might say Napoleon Dynamite enjoyed his tots. Deb wore a dress. Mosquitoes bit the students. So we're just moving into the past tense. Then we have the future, right? Which is going to be future actions, promises, predictions, stuff that hasn't happened yet. So the cafeteria shall be transformed. The dance will start. It will be filled. Napoleon Dynamite will enjoy those tots. Deb will wear her dress. So notice you got a lot of wills in there. You might have a shall or a might or a could, but you're showing the future tense for things that haven't happened yet. These are the verbs we use most of the time, so they should be fairly familiar. Now it's going to get real because we're moving into the perfect tenses. And I assure you, they're not perfect, but just come with me on this wild ride. Okay. So if you have an action that either finished or started before something else, then we use have, right? With that have, because we've got had, have, has, will, and shall have. And then they also use the past participle form of the verb. So it's going to end in ed or n or t most of the time. All right, let's see what this looks like. So if we're present tense, but we are in the perfect tense, so this is present perfect. We have all the P's in this chapter. You might say, okay, let's just look at it. If something started in the past, like high school dances have developed a reputation for awkwardness. So have developed tells us that it started in the past. It may or may not continue into the future. That's what the perfect tense tells you. But if it started before something else, you would say, the cafeteria has transformed before the dance begins. So I have it starting in the past. It's continuing to occur, but it also is occurring before something else, before the dance begins. So, it gives you that specificity. Then if there's not a specified time, you're just like, they have monitored. They have monitored it yesterday. They will continue to monitor it. I don't know. It's happening, for a period of time. Then if you want to say that it started and continues up until right now, you're like, Mrs. David has chaperoned. So we assume that this is going to continue. Napoleon Dynamite has enjoyed his touch. She has worn a dress. Mosquitoes have bitten the students. So that's all going to be the present perfect. Now, because like I said, we like choices, there is also the past perfect. So the past perfect does the same thing, but assumes that the thing occurred in the past. It continued maybe, but then it stopped. So it started before something else, right? They had monitored students because of this reputation or whatever. Then, if you have something that just started and ended in the past, Mrs. Davis had chaperoned many dances over the years. That tells me that this is done, right? It occurred, it's ended, it's over. And then if we want to go back to Napoleon Dynamite here, had enjoyed, had worn, had bitten. So that's the past perfect meaning. We have that helper verb. The future, we want to predict things. So we're going to play the same game, will have been transformed. We need a lot more words to help us get to the future. So you're going to have a lot more of these helping words. Will begin, right? He will have enjoyed his tots by that afternoon. She will have worn a dress. They will have been. or they will have been. The students will have been bitten. Now, because we're not okay with just the simple tense and the perfect tense, we need the progressive as well. So the present progressive means you added an ing. That's all the progressive means. It means continuing. So I am transforming. I'm in the process, right? The chaperone is monitoring. He is enjoying his touch. She is wearing a dress. They are biting the students. But we can make that past tense, and then we're like, I was transforming. I was monitoring. He was enjoying. She was wearing. They were biting. So that's what happens when you take the progressive from the present and you put it into the past. Now, we've got one more, right? But this one, because we need all the choices in English, this one actually breaks up into two sections. So there's the perfect tense, right? Shows that something happened in the past and may or may not have continued. We can combine that with the progressive. So then we have the perfect progressive. But then that also comes in present tense and past tense. So what does that look like? You're like, I have been transforming the high school cafeteria. So if you want to show someone like, I started doing a thing, I'm still doing a thing, you're probably suggesting maybe you need help. Like, I have been doing this thing for a long time. Maybe I could use some assistance, right? Or the chaperone has been monitoring the behavior. Like, they started a while ago and they're continuing to do it. He has been enjoying. She has been wearing. So that's what the perfect progressive in the present tense looks like. Then we have the past in the same perfect progressive. So I had been transforming. In these, you will usually have another marker of time. By the time my helper arrived, I had been transforming. You know, when the night grew late, they had been monitoring. Had been wearing, had been biting. So they can be a little clumsy. A lot of times there's another way to say this, but it's an option. So you're allowed to use it. Then we move into the future, right? ing, progressive, but just in the future. So I will be transforming, will be monitoring, will be enjoying, will be wearing. And just to make life easier or not, there are lots of irregular verbs in English that don't follow the same rules as all the others because English is complicated. I hope you watched that series of videos about the history of English to figure out why. Why? Because England got invaded a lot. But these are, this is normally how a verb works, walk to walk, walks, walked, walk, walking. Swim to swim, swim, swims. Oh, wait, we got to swam and we got to swum. So now we're getting weird. And then you get into the to be verbs and then eat, right? So if you're wondering how a verb changes form, just look it up. The dictionary is probably your best bet. Now, I think we are going to pause here so that you can spend some time working your way back. Now, verb tense isn't something you need to memorize. I know it because I'm an English teacher, but I always refer to the charts. Very slowly, it will start to come to you, but these are things that you want to just realize that they exist. So remember, you've got your three categories, simple, past, future, and then each one of those can have a present tense, or a perfect tense, a progressive tense, or the perfect progressive tense. So have a good time with that.